Hey folks, welcome to Guitar Daily. So I thought today what I'd talk about is kind of some minor pentatonic things. I think there's this notion with minor pentatonic that it's a beginner scale. And now a lot of beginners do learn this scale. It's one of the first ones they learn, right? You know, or blues scale, pentatonic, in the key of G, this sort of stuff, right? And then there's this idea that it's not really pro to keep using that. I just think that's a load of rubbish, right? Pros use the scale, amateurs use the scale. The difference is in the way in which pros use it. So I thought sort of talk about some of that stuff today, of how I kind of approach it to make it sound more pro. The first thing I do is try and avoid the cliches. I've talked about this before, but you know, now, in a rock and roll setting, maybe that's the appropriate thing to do. But I try and avoid that sort of stuff if I can, right? And I try and think of like someone like David Gilmour, perfect example. What does Gilmour do, right? He plays pentatonic largely, but you wouldn't say he's a blues player. He's kind of thinking melodically about it. So I try and think that way, right? And one thing you can do is start thinking this direction. I've talked about this again as well. So something like that, for example, might take you away from just thinking in that box shape. I'm now thinking this direction. Or thinking like more than one note at once, right? Now, the temptation with more than one note at once is to think like Chuck Berry type stuff. But I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking like trying to find little kind of modal chords, almost, if you will, within the pentatonic. And you would have heard that at the beginning there. Right? So things like those three notes belong to G minor pentatonic. But so do those. Right? And so do those. If we just take that much there, right? I've just taken the top three strings. Oh, and there'll be one more down here. Right? There's a lot of music we can get out of just that. Something like that doesn't sound like the blues, does it? It sounds fresh and kind of interesting to me. So there, instead of going, I'll go. So that's a kind of another way to kind of break out of it. The other thing I do often too is if like a minor blues like I had at the beginning there, which would be G minor for 4 bars, right? And then it goes to C minor for 4 bars, G minor for 4 bars, and then E flat, D, back to G minor, right? On the G minor chord, well, I'm going to use minor pentatonic. It's minor blues, right? And all 5 shapes of it. Alright, all those, right, across the neck. If you don't know those, I'll put them on my music page, Nick Granville Music, and I'll just do a diagram and put that on there, so go and check that out. But you need to know those 5 shapes first, right? And being able to use them. But then what I do is when the next chord's C minor, I'll go to C minor pentatonic, which is more of a jazz approach, right? To play each chord change. But I'm not playing jazz, I'm playing a minor blues. But I'm playing, you know, I'm changing scale. So at that point, I go up to C minor pentatonic. Back to G. And the key to it, I find, is not to go, like if I go G minor here, I don't want to jump up here to first position of C minor. I want to play C minor in the same place. So G minor will be this. And then C minor will be this. I want to see how one overlays on the other, right? And so my next position, G minor, will be this. Right? And then my C minor will be... So there's one note difference between those two scales, right? And I'm trying to find, like, 'cause that way what happens is I can be exploring a melodic idea and I don't have to destroy my melodic idea by jumping up somewhere else. I can make it flow through with the chord change, right? And that also, again, sort of blurs the lines between what you're doing, and it starts to, instead of sounding like it's this scale and this chord, and then all of a sudden it's this scale and this chord, and then back, you can kind of get your ideas to go through. And we're going to C minor. Now we're back into G minor. Right, and when we hit the E flat, I'd use other devices, but you could actually go back to G minor or continue on G minor, or you could go into other things like Mixolydian or altered scales, those sorts of things. But you see, this is kind of a good way to kind of approach pentatonic. Like, what are the things that make it cliche, right? It's like your typical blues licks, right? So let's try and find some chords out of it to break away from that and use them as both melodic ideas. Let's try and take it this direction, as I've talked about before. Because I think at the end of the day, people, the listener, they don't actually care what scale you play. We might think they do. We might think, oh, I'm playing this hip stuff that everyone's going to think is really cool. They don't care. They either the music moves them or it doesn't. It's as simple as that. And so to me, it's kind of like, okay, if I'm playing pentatonic, I don't think of it as an amateur thing. It's like, can I move people with these sounds? Like, make them feel something. That's what I'm trying to do, right? And so then to me, it becomes about melodic expression. And I'm always thinking about that. So even then, just the way I ornamentated that, you know. Ornamentated? I think that's the word I'm thinking of. It's the reason I play guitar, and yeah. But I'm trying to think about the way I decorate it, I guess is probably a better way of putting it. Like, how do I decorate those notes to give them a certain feeling? There I played a note that was outside the scale, but I bent up to one that is in. And again, that's another way of kind of breaking out of pentatonic. So I hope this has been useful. If it has, please subscribe. My name's Nick Granville. I do videos every day on YouTube. My latest album, Reamp, you can get this on Bandcamp for free, or pay whatever you want. Go and check it out. I'd love you to hear it. There's some good stuff on it. He actually played quite a bit of pentatonic stuff, and this is a funk album, right? So yeah, check it out. If you haven't got a copy, it's free on Bandcamp. Buy Me a Coffee is up and available. PayPal, all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate everyone tuning in to do this. Thank you to everyone who watched my live stream yesterday. Unfortunately, I had some technical issues. My interface wasn't connecting, which is a bit annoying, but that's how it goes. YouTube, the app updated and everything had moved, and then when I plugged it back in, it didn't connect for some reason. So you were only hearing iPhone audio for the first half, and I asked people and they said, yeah, it's sounding fine, but it wasn't. The backing tracks weren't coming through. You weren't hearing it properly. But anyway, I'll get that sorted for next week. So yeah, I live stream every Sunday night. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Cheers.